Alright, what's going on, guys? Lawson here, and today I'm going to be talking about how to get the most out of your soft plastic lures and how to save yourself money and how to make new baits with old plastics. So, as you can see, we are not on the water today. So, I'm still going to upload on Saturday of fishing, but today I want to talk about this because it's a pretty cool thing. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do a little project and kind of just take you with me. I'm going to make a small swim bait, and so it's going to look something like this. Is a little DOA cow. It's going to look something like that. And we're going to try to replicate kind of a small swim bait of our own that we're going to make using clay and old soft plastic. So we have just old baits here, like, I got old DOA shrimps, old flukes for bass fishing like that. Tons and tons of different stuff. And we're going to use that in clay and something right here called, something right here called Amazing Mold Putty, which there's a bunch of different brands, so don't think I'm brand advertising. Oh yeah. So what this is, it is a two-part putty. It's very similar to plumber's putty actually, and how it works is you have two separate putties. Let's get this out of the container. Got a yellow one right here and kind of a grayish purple tint right here. We'll get these two out of the container right there, little putty. And what you do is there are two different compounds essentially, and when you combine them together, it cures. And once it cures, it hardens into something like this, which is like a rigid mold. You see right here, this is a little paddle tail, double paddle tail, almost like a frog-like mold that I've made. And when that putty cures, right now you can see it's very pliable and soft, but once you combine it and it cures, it's very rigid and flexible, but it won't tear, and that's what your mold is going to be. And so I'm going to take you through how to sculpt your clay swim bait, how to cook your clay so it hardens so you can then put your mold around it, and how to melt the soft plastic down, and how to pour it into your mold, let it cure, and we're going to kind of look what this little swim bait turns out and looks like. Hopefully it'll look good. This is just going to be kind of a rough thing. When you use this mold right here, this mold putty, this is a low detailed mold, I would call it, because it's not going to have very high detailed, scale patterns and really intricate details. You could put eyes into your mold, but it might, it's going to pick those up, little things like that, but it's not going to pick up very intricate details. This is what I like to do for almost a prototype when I want to test out the shape of a bait. And it's really simple, like something like this little DOA cow right here, this little swim bait, there is no fine details on it. It is literally just a simple swim bait that has two different coloration patterns in it. It's just a shape, and we'll be able to replicate something like that using this putty and our old soft plastics. So we're going to get at it. Alright, I put down this little board just to kind of add some contrasting to it. So this is what we're starting with right here. Just a little tiny block of Sculpey oven baked clay. What's cool about this is that it doesn't cure or harden until you bake it in the oven till at 275 for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. It takes a while to bake in the oven. So it's cool because you don't have to use the whole entire thing at once. But I'll show you, this is what essentially we're striving for right here, is this little DOA cow swim bait. And it's kind of what we're trying to replicate. It's not going to be the exact same thing, but it's going to be similar to that, where we're just going to be making a nice small swim bait. So we're going to start just rolling the clay in our hand and kind of getting the base shape of a little bait fish. This will be a good replication of a small mullet, small glass minnow, anything little that swims, mosquito fish, whatever. So we're just going to kind of roll a rough shape. Alright, so what we've done here, we've kind of made the base shape for our little fish bait right here. It's kind of, if you see, it has a tapered body where it starts fat and goes down to a little skinny tail. And that's just to give it a fish-like appearance, and that's going to help it swim. If it's too fat of a tail, you're not going to have any action in it. So we want to kind of taper down to a skinny tail to allow it to have a nice wiggle when the paddle tail is added. So we have that here. We're going to just press that flat against there and just make sure the shape's right. Now we're going to start working on the little paddle tail. And so it's going to work this clay. And really, it's going to be super simple, where I'm just going to press this clay down with my thumb and make almost, look at that, just by my thumbprint, I've made a paddle tail essentially, just by pressing my thumb into the clay. And the shape around my thumbprint has made a paddle tail-like adjustment. And now I might size this down a little bit just so it's not so disproportionate with the size of my bait and the tail. So I'm going to cut around the edges with this little clay sculpting tool. You could literally use a knife, like a butter knife, your fingers, anything. It doesn't matter. Just, we're going to size this down though. Alright, there's the basis of our little paddle tail bait right there. Alright, so we have our little paddle tail bait here, and what we're going to do is kind of add a little bit of a reinforcement to it. So we're going to make almost like a little bracing support for the tail, the place between the tail and the body. So we're just going to make a tiny little bar here. I'm going to even cut that in half. I'm just going to roll out a little bar. Smooth it into the tail, kind of integrate it into the body. Just using my thumbs, literally nothing complicated at all. So now what we need to do is go pop this bad boy in the oven. Alright, we're in the kitchen now, and we got a baking sheet out, and I've put down just some wax paper, and that will just stop this lure from sticking, or this clay from sticking to the baking sheet once it heats up, because if you don't have the wax paper on, it might stick and it could break your lure when you're trying to pull it off. So we're going to put that on just like there, fit them on, looks good. Now we're going to set the oven to 275. Bingo. And so we're just going to throw our little guy in here. And this is going to take a while. Alrighty, it's been just about over an hour. We had our little clay boy baking in the oven. There he is right there. We'll pull this guy out. Prop him up. Turn that oven off. And now he should be hardened. He is very hot still right now, so I am going to pick him up with this oven mitt. We're going to take him to the room and get into the good stuff where it actually gets fun. Alright, so we have let our little guy cool off right here, and he's looking pretty good right there. Looks like a nice little swim bait in the making. So sometimes what I'll do if they're looking a little rough, I'll get sandpaper and I'll go around the edges and sand them all the way down, but I don't think it's really necessary right now for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my putty. I'm going to get it out of the container. Alright, now we have our putty out, both sides. And so what we're going to do, we're going to start mixing this together. And you got to work pretty quick once you mix it together, because this stuff cures in about 15 minutes. It is completely hardened. And once it is, there's no going back. So we got our equal measures out, a 1-to-1 ratio on the putty, so we're going to start mixing it nice and good. And so what we've done is we've laid our little paddle tail on the with its back down. Paddle tails with its back down, and so we're just going to form this putty once it's mixed up over it and press it down all around it. So what we're going to do with the putty surrounding it is going to make an open face mold where this is going to capture the shape of the putty, and then it's going to have an open pore for us to pour our soft plastic into. So the lure will have a flat back, but that's fine for a little swim bait, you know. You look at this little cow, has a flat back naturally. So we're going to make sure this is nice and mixed. Stretch it over our bait we've made. And so what I'm doing, I formed the putty around the bait now, and I'm just pressing it down to make sure that we're getting the proper shape of the bait and that there's no gaps in it. Be careful with that when you're pressing it. You don't go too hard that you create any tears, and you'll create holes and tears in your mold, and that way the soft plastic will leak through. That is a no-go. face down and press this stuff down. And now we're gonna let that cure just for only maybe 10 minutes max. Oh God, 10 minutes max. We'll be good. Alright, we've given about 10 minutes to let our rubber mold cure, so now we're gonna bust this bad boy open. It's as simple as literally peeling back the sides and slowly wiggling your bait out. Bada bing, bada boom. We have a fleshed out rubber mold of our little swim bait. So, next step is pouring the soft plastics into the mold. And so, we need to melt down some soft plastics to use. So, got our old nasty Pyrex measuring cup here, and we're gonna fill this up with just one particular color. Let's say blue, because I'm seeing a lot of blue baits right here. So these are just some old blue flukes that I have for bass fishing. So look, got a handful, 4 of them right here. So what I'm gonna do is chop these bad boys up in smaller parts, right into the Pyrex measuring cup. Snip, snip, snip. What we're going to do, we're going to bust our microwave open, and we're going to put these soft plastics in the microwave, and we're going to start off at 1:30 seconds. It's been in for another minute. I'm going to give it a look and see. Alright, it's melted down a little bit. You can see it's bubbling right there. So what we're going to do, just a regular popsicle stick, going to kind of stir it up a little bit. Mix it up. I will say, just forewarning, the soft plastics, when you melt them down, they stank. It's not too bad, it just smells like burning plastic. Still a little bubbly, but it's melted down enough where we can pour it. So we're just going to kick it up, stir it up a little bit in here. And we're going to slowly pour it into our mold. Overfilled that little bit. That's alright. So, that's poured right now, and so we're going to give it probably about 10 minutes to cure and cool down essentially. So the soft plastic's melted right now, but once it's poured into the mold, it's going to slowly cure and cool down. And what we can even do right here, since I overfilled the top, we can actually just scrape it off the top if we want to. Our soft plastic has finished curing, so we're going to slowly pull it out of the mold right here. I'm going to put it over to the GoPro right here so you can see it. I'm just going to pry it apart nice and slow. And the tail is the only part you got to kind of be gentle and kind of wiggle it out so you don't tear it. I mean, I'm not going to lie, that doesn't look half bad right there. We'll trim up the back a little bit, but that is our soft plastic right there. And so what I'll do, a lot of times you can see this kind of a little bit of leftovers. You can just get a nice pair of scissors and you can just trim off the excess. And a lot of times you can even just peel it off with your hands because it's just very thin. Alright, so we got our rod here, got a bait caster, we got our little bait rigged up right there that we just finished casting. Got a GoPro in the pool. We're going to see how this sucker looks. I think it's got a pretty fat body, but it's not so much of a tail wobble. Like the tail doesn't kick really rapidly back and forth, but the whole body wobbles very nicely where it kind of kicks back and forth like a fish moving rhythmically. Even at a fast rate, it still maintains its swimming motion, so that's pretty good. Actually, when it's swimming faster, it has an even better action than when it's going slow. Yeah, when you reel it slow, it has just kind of a little wobble where it shakes. It shakes nicely back and forth, just side to side like that. But then when you whip it pretty quick, it really starts shaking. It looks great. And some sharp snaps with the rod tip as well really give it a lot of great action. I mean, overall, I literally started out with nothing today. Had clay, some old soft plastics that were broken and no good, and some putty, and we've made a brand new lure and a new mold that now that we have that mold, I can cast this little swim bait as many times as I want to, and thousands upon thousands different of colorations, combinations, anything I want really. And I mean, you guys saw how to do it, so you can too. So it's pretty awesome. And I'm excited to look at the underwater footage, but I hope you guys learned a little bit about, don't throw away your soft plastics, because you could actually really reuse those things and bring them back to life with something as simple as clay, putty, and those broken soft plastics. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you liked the video, and if you have any comments or questions about how I did everything, if I went too fast anywhere, if I missed any steps in explaining how everything was done, just leave a comment. And I'll probably sometime next week I'll do a video about how to make a lure, but with a high definition mold where you use a silicone based mixture, and it catches every single detail of the lure you're trying to cast. So I'll probably do something about that next week. But if you guys have any suggestions of videos I should make, let me know. But until next time, peace.